We're doing the news with the dog in our lap today. We're starting today with a story so stupid I almost just ignored it.
So this is Lake Ontario in Canada and in the United States. But we're going to make a little change. We're going to call it something different than Lake Ontario. We're going to call it Lake America. And all it takes is a good pen and some intelligence. So Lake Ontario, that's gone. Lake America.
Today we also have a sprawling segment on the dysfunction in Pete Hegseth's military, Iran's AI-powered disinformation campaign on social media, which you just may have been hit by, record-breaking arrests by ICE, and Republicans are failing to prosecute Anthony Fauci. I'm Sammy Sage, and this is the Morning Announcements, your 10-minute rundown of current events and the best way to always know what the is going on. Subscribe and turn on notifications because checking the news more than once a day is bad for your health, and with me, you only have to do it once. Today marks 60 days since the Iran war started, and yet this is what we have our Commerce Secretary talking about.
Let's renovate the heck out of this building. Let's make it glorious and make President Trump, if he's willing to run this as the construction manager, thank the Lord.
By the way, this isn't even the really stupid story I was originally going to start with. This just happened to come up before I recorded.
Only he has the power and the expertise to renovate this building in a spectacular fashion. If the building is not properly renovated and restored, eventually it falls into a set of disrepair that it cannot be used. A building that was built in 1964 that isn't renovated does eventually get torn down. It does.
I wonder if Howard has ever been to Rome, where the Parthenon was built in the year 125, and yet thousands of tourists walk through that a week and seems good. Or even like McSorley's Ale House in the East Village, which has been open and operating since 1854. You're an idiot, Howard. Now for our original stupid story. I find it so embarrassing that I have to even talk about this, but here we go. The president held an Oval Office event yesterday to sign an executive order changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America.
The lake change, Lake of America, was something I've been thinking about for a long time, actually. As you know, we took something called the Gulf of Mexico, we changed it, and now it's very routinely the Gulf of America. So if you think about it, we have a Gulf and we have a lake. Now all we need is an ocean. So maybe we'll have to change the name of the Atlantic and or the Pacific. Maybe we'll change them both.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney clapped back. I guess you could call it a clapback. The name Lake Ontario comes from the Wendat word Ontario, sorry if I'm butchering that, which appropriately means the lake is beautiful, the lake is big. Just like your bill, Donnie. And the name is more than 400 years old. Older than Mitch McConnell. If you ever find yourself wondering how this man was elected and or re-elected and is still maintaining even a modicum of support, may I suggest it's because we're all swimming in an altered reality, not just from our own Delulu president, who does it on purpose, but on social media, where we are increasingly all getting our news and spending our time, and where Iran has been operating an AI-powered operation to target Americans on Instagram and Facebook, with political misinformation and disinformation. Meta said that they took down a network of 4 Facebook and 31 Instagram accounts, which gained thousands of followers by posing as average Americans. They said that those accounts would attempt to collaborate with high-profile political figures and news outlets, while also sharing anti-Republican memes and messaging, mainly about immigration and the Israel-Palestine conflict. Good thing we have the most lethal military in the world when apparently all we need to combat Iran is a fleet of people with exhaustive Tumblr experience. Unfortunately, as it stands, we are stuck with our high-T military under the direction of an incredibly vain former weekend news anchor. And if you can believe it, that is starting to show. I don't even know where to start with this because I have like 5 scandals on hand. But I will start with the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is on its way home, prompted by several sailors attempting to take their own lives after months of living in filth. And of course, the reason for that is due to strategic incompetence of our own administration. One of the sailors who jumped off the USS Abraham Lincoln in what his wife described as a suicide attempt is now facing disciplinary action from the Navy for allegedly malingering, i.e. faking an illness or hurting yourself to avoid service. He's also being charged with absence without leave, which means he failed to be at the required place of duty because he was medically evacuated to San Diego after he jumped off the ship. Now a commanding officer will get to decide his punishment, which could result in losing half his normal pay. By the way, he and his wife just had a baby while he was deployed on the ship, and his multiple requests for paternity leave were denied. Whoa, Paternity leave, that's for the ladies. Isn't it interesting how this happens when, by multiple accounts, Pete Hegseth himself cannot function without his third wife following him around, behaving as his minder? Sorry, his producer. Because that's totally a normal thing for the Secretary of Defense/War to have around. Let me give you some context. Jennifer Hegseth had an 18-year career at Fox News, where she was actually Pete's producer. That's when they started. Though now she's transitioned to being her husband's adult nanny and getting involved in things that she has no legal business being involved in. For example, remember the Houthi PC small chat? She was in that. She's also attended highly sensitive meetings with foreign intelligence officials. And no, it's not clear whether she has official clearance, but I'm guessing if she did, they would have told the New York Times that. Pretty crazy how she's getting the Natalie treatment. Or maybe it's pretty crazy how Natalie is getting the Jennifer treatment. I don't know. It's all very sober behavior. Speaking of what it's like to be a woman under the Trump administration, this one calls for a trigger warning for sexual assault. Fast forward about a minute. This situation goes back to December 2021 aboard the military transport ship, the USNS Carson City. A 35-year-old civilian Navy engineer alleged that she was raped by the ship's captain while sleeping in her own bed after he entered her private room using his master access code. Just my 2 cents. There's no way this is the only time he's done that. She reported him the next morning and has been pursuing legal action ever since, including against the federal government for negligence. But this week, a judge dismissed her lawsuit on the grounds that the case needs to be treated as a workplace compensation claim, not a normal civil lawsuit for assault. So now she has no recourse through the U.S. court system, just through the Labor Department. And I'm sure that will go very well, while it should very much be a both-and situation. Meanwhile, MS Now is reporting that they spoke to 5 service members who say they're being asked to break international law as part of their job, such as targeting and bombing civilian infrastructure, like a school, for example, and or striking random boats in the Caribbean. One outside military group said that they had recently gotten 150 applications from service members who want to leave the military as conscientious objectors, while another group said that they've been getting around 400 inquiries a month about how to leave the military since the Iran war started. This is extremely unusual, and it seems to be just as much a problem around the rank and file as it is among the leadership. Because we also have reporting from the Washington Post this week, which revealed that Pete Hegseth fired the Army's top general, General Randy George, with no explanation a few months ago. And that came just a few days after he had been advised to drop an investigation into how Kid Rock got a military helicopter to fly by his house in Tennessee so that he could wave to it on social media. Apparently, General George wanted to follow the typical protocol to see if any safety regulations were violated, but obviously that was unacceptable. Safety? A washed-up country singer is demanding a flyby. In case you thought this administration could manage anything competently, we are also running out of advanced missile interceptors in Europe. Yes, our military, with its mind-blowing budgets, is reportedly beyond critically low on missiles because of the Iran war. While I can't say I'm a fan of huge military budgets, this low missile stock is actually quite concerning, especially when you take into account that Russia is apparently itching to attack Europe so badly that the CIA director had to go in person to tell them not to do it. Do you think it'll work?
Vladimir Putin agreed or committed to not attacking a NATO territory.
I've had good talks with him. He's not going to be attacking a NATO territory. And you have to understand, for everything they do, we do also. You know, somebody was saying about China, what about China? We hear they're spying. We spy on them too. That's the way it goes.
Why not sanction Chinese banks, though, who are doing business
Well,
with
who said I'm not? You said, why not? I mean, who said I'm not? You don't know if I'm doing it. Well, I don't have to announce everything, do I?
The numbers are in, and ICE arrests have been surging this summer, nearly hitting Stephen Miller's daily goal of 2,000 arrests a day. There were 43,000 arrests in June and 49,000 in July. And though Trump once promised to deport the worst of the worst, a broad majority of the immigrants arrested last month were people who were never charged or convicted of a crime, according to the government's own data. And less than 4% of the people arrested had a past violent criminal conviction. Worst of the worst indeed. I think part of the problem is that ICE has too much money. We should spend it on missile interceptors instead. We are ending the week with some good news. You will be pleased to hear that Republicans' attempts to prosecute Dr. Anthony Fauci are not working. Congress has not successfully voted to hold him in contempt, and there has been no referral to the DOJ for criminal prosecution. Because on top of having absolutely no case, apparently it's not a priority for Donald Trump to push the issue right now. Yeah, because he obviously has bigger threats to deal with, like Canada.